By now, I imagine folks have heard this horrible story, the latest one, really, in many respects. According to Gun Violence Archive, which is a nonprofit research group, tracks gun violence with police reports, defines a mass shooting in which at least 4 people are killed or injured. There have been 130 mass shootings in the United States, essentially in the first quarter of 2023. We're not quite there yet. 130 mass shootings in 3 months. That is
more than one a day.
40, yeah, more than one a day mass shootings. Apparently, a 28-year-old from Nashville went in, and we have news reports. We've seen the police chief out there saying that this, and the latest reports are that it was a 28-year-old trans man from Nashville, had been staking out this school, had gone to this school apparently, or had some resent toward the school, went in, shot 3 children and 3 adults, and had plans to do a lot more. And this was a what looks like a covenant school, which is a Christian school, and covenant school suggests to me also a very fundamentalist one.
It's a private Christian elementary school.
And there was some question as to the gender identity of the assailant. The chief at that time said the shooter was transgender, who I believe, as far as we can tell at this point, transgender male. There's obviously a lot more that needs to come out. They have a manifesto, so they'll have a better sense of the reasons why. But again, you know, people do all sorts of crazy things. The point is why is it so easy to kill 6 people and perhaps kill more? Well, because of guns. However, Tucker Carlson smells a conspiracy here.
No.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. We begin with a Fox News alert. There has been a mass murder at a Christian school in Tennessee. Several people have been declared dead, children and adults. We're learning a lot more at this hour. All the conversation on television has been about the guns that were used, and there may be a reason for that. They don't want to talk about who did it and why. Law enforcement has confirmed at this hour that the shooter was a trans person, a biological woman, identifying as a man. What does that mean? Well, we're gathering new information about this mass killing. Our own Trace Gallagher will have a live update for us.
Well, the one thing that we know that it means is that this person was able to secure multiple weapons, including an AR-15 rifle, an AR-15 style handgun, and at least from what I've heard of the latest reports, 2 of those are acquired legally. There was another weapon or 2, and they had a lot of plans to kill a lot of people. And they were not armed to the teeth with knives or with baseball bats or with scythes or with, you know, bow and arrows.
Yeah. That's the common variable here, right? Like, there's a lot of right-wingers trying to parse through the gender identity of the shooter and say this is a part of a larger epidemic. But the common variable in all these shootings is the access to guns in this country. That is what it is.
I mean, the and the amount of projection associated with that. The reason why people are not talking about the person who committed it, particularly as of last night, was because there was very little information. The reason why Tucker Carlson wants to talk about the person who committed it is because it is the best way to avoid the question of guns in this country. And of course, you know, the overtones that somehow prayers will help defend against these type of things, or that somehow conservatives have a better sense of what's going to protect children.
Yeah.
That obviously they don't want to dwell too much on that, because everyone is susceptible to getting shot by a gun in a country where guns are so prolific. I mean, that's just the bottom line.
That's the reality. And, there's a lot of right-wing focus right now on the pathology of the shooter. And I know Benny Johnson, Candace Owens already running with the narrative, of course, trans. If you're trans, you're mentally unwell. If those right-wingers want to play the numbers game about who are mass shooters in this country, we can play that game. But we don't need to, because the reality is that what the left is consistent on is that we need to target the sale and manufacturing of these weapons and not allow them to be so widely spread. That's the consistent point here. But they've been priming this narrative about mental health with shootings for a while. They were spreading the conspiracy theory about the Uvalde shooter being trans, which wasn't true. They ran with the Colorado Springs shooter saying, I'm non-binary, which was clearly some sort of 8chan troll job, or a way to get around hate crime charges. Regardless, this is we're in for a huge swell of being trans makes you dangerous and makes you mentally unwell in the right-wing discourse. I just want people to be prepared for it, because they've been greasing the runway, and here we are.
Here is a clip of gun control activist and shooting survivor Ashby Beasley on Fox News' live coverage of the Nashville shooting, asking reporters if they're tired of covering acts of violence like this one.
Aren't you guys tired of covering this? Aren't you guys tired of being here and having to cover all of these mass shootings? I'm from Highland Park. Family vacation with my son, visiting my sister-in-law. I have been lobbying in D.C. since we survived a mass shooting in July. I have met with over 130 lawmakers. How is this still happening? How are our children still dying, and why are we failing them? Gun violence is the #1 killer of children and teens. It has overtaken cars. Assault weapons are contributing to the border crisis and fentanyl. We are arming cartels with our guns and our loose gun laws, and these shootings and these mass shootings will continue to happen until our lawmakers step up and pass gun safety legislation. I'm pretty sure this was an unsecured weapon that this teenager got a hold of. We can't even pass gun safety, safe storage laws in this country to protect kids from getting a hold of weapons that they shoot each other with.
All right, so we're going to break away there, because that reporter who was using that camera is obviously setting up to do a live report there. But the woman said it quite succinctly. Aren't you tired of this? Yes, we are tired of this.
That's, of course, Fox News in the afternoon. In the evening, they're pretty excited about it, because they get to talk about trans people a little bit more. I mean, this is, there is very little activity on the Hill about gun legislation. We also know the Supreme Court is, primed to strike down anything that has any sort of substance and would in any way curtail gun ownership. We're seeing it in, state by state situations. And frankly, the only thing surprising about this is that there aren't, enough senators in the Senate who are even willing to take the vote, even though they know that the Supreme Court would strike down anything that was in any way significant.
Yeah.
This is the society we live in. And the idea that people are going to get upset in any sort of significant way for people being killed like this, I think in the wake of COVID, there is, and frankly, and in the wake of Donald Trump's presidency, the regard for human life is just much lower, I think. And I mean, let's play this clip of, and this is, unrelated, I guess, but it is pretty sort of stunning. I mean, we're starting to see like, we've got clips of guys going around with, on his truck, really on a business truck, with like basically promoting white supremacy. And they're just like, I'm doing this. Like, I think there's just sort of like, there's a lot of, I don't know if mask off is, but a lot of is the right way to characterize it. But the dialogue, the social mores in our society, the value of life, we've definitely seen a diminishment. We had over 1 million people in this country dead by COVID. Well over.
Yeah.
And for a significant portion of that, you had Republican politicians saying, some of these folks are chum. These older folks are, they got to make way anyways.
Chum for capitalism to continue churning on. They're the pro-life party. Like, they have stripped so much meaning out of all words, including the word life.
Or pro-life.
Or pro. I mean, it's just like, this is literally 1984, not to be that person, but like, they have been immensely successful at completely stripping the context of their brutality out of the discourse. They're pro-life, but they support these mass weapons of mass killing and of just letting the pandemic run rampant so some bosses can get rich.
Here is State Senator Mike Wobema from North Dakota. There is a bill that is going through the North Dakotan Senate that would provide free lunches, if you can believe this, to low-income school children in the state. And, best practices are you provide free lunches for all the kids, so it doesn't create a stigma for those kids who are who don't have the resources at home to get the nutrition. But here is like, Wobema really articulating something that you wouldn't really hear that often, it seems to me, in the past, right? It is one thing to sort of blame the parents. It's another to say like, well, then you're SOL.
Senator Wobema.
Madam President, I'll be the ogre in the room. The federal government prints its own money, and yet they decided that 135 and 180 is the right percentage above poverty rate to provide for meals. North Dakota doesn't print its own money. Why would we be trying to outspend the federal government? We talk about personal responsibility as one of the major principles that the Republican Party stands on. Yes, I can understand kids going hungry, but is that really the problem of the school district? Is that the problem of the state of North Dakota? It's really the problem of parents being negligent with their kids if their kids are choosing to eat in the first place, which is entirely the problem that could be existing here. I don't believe that it is our responsibility to carry on a program in excess of what the federal government already does. Where does it stop?
I mean, just let's quickly dismiss with the idea that it's possible there's just a coincidence that these people, these kids are, living within a certain amount of the poverty range. Maybe they just don't like to eat. And so why would we want to give them free lunches if they just aren't interested in eating? But what is the point of a state existing? Or the government existing, if a federal government existing, if they're not going to literally feed children who are undernourished. What's the point?
Why should we construct a society if we don't allow for those kinds of basic needs?
I mean, honestly, it's like, well, we've got to protect the property rights.
Naturally.
Because we want what? Because we want society to function. And what is the value of a functioning society if it has it totally feels no responsibility to feed its own hungry children? What's the point?
Well, yeah, let's just cut to the chase and cut all of our government spending, but funnel the rest just to the police who can protect property and crack skulls of people that might be infringing on wealthy people's land or ownership.
And I feel like a lot of this stuff also gives lie to the whole argument of like, look how hypocritical they are, or like, they don't believe this. This is just completely cynical. It's like, even if that, sure, you can grant, even if we were to grant them that, that's also still sort of an excuse for them. It's still trying to see some sort of benevolence in a person doing something.
No, but he goes he says, "I'll be the ogre in the room."
Oh yeah,
he thinks he's being very noble by saying this out loud.
Right. I'm making the hard decision.
The rest of you are soft.
I'm taking the hard. I'm using
truth teller.
Tough love.
I have calloused hands from grabbing bread out of children's mouths.
I'll be the ogre in the room, right?
Like, you guys are soft and moisturized. I'm rugged as I punch children in the face.
It just seems like the callousness. People even liberals, even Democrats want to avoid thinking people can be this depraved, but they are.
I mean, there's been many reports of focus groups that will relate to people, regardless of what their what their political allegiances are. A whole host of Republican policies, and being tested for ads, for instance, and the ads aren't effective because people don't believe that there would be a political party that articulates these things. I mean, it's one thing to say, like, the Democratic Party is Joe Biden just okayed the Willow Project, which is going to be incredibly destructive. And he comes out and he says that he did so reluctantly, but there was complications, illegal, whatever. At the very least, he knows that he's got to come out and sort of like pretend and pay lip service to it. They still may have very similar, corporate benefactors at times, but at least there's a consciousness that we're not going to make it a stated policy. It's always going to be that we're constrained from actually carrying out what the policies are, and the material differences are there are material differences in the final analysis when that's your perspective. But the idea that it is a point of pride. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be the ogre. That's the way I'm going to enter. I am going to be the one who's really the only truth teller here. Wow. Why are we taking care of poor kids when they can't eat? Isn't that the responsibility of the homesteaders? Why even have what you should shut off the federal government from you should stand at the border and keep that federal government from not bringing that money in, because it's just softening these kids up.
Yeah. Another reminder that the right wants to make every public institution as inhospitable to regular people as possible, wants to stratify it along class lines, push others out that they don't feel are deserving of being power players in the society. And they start with public education, and just like cutting these kinds of things for school lunches is the genesis, is at the heart of that.
All right, we're going to take a quick break in a moment. When we come back, we'll be talking to Marin Rappaport, editor at Local Call, writer at 972 Magazine, about what's going on in Israel.